Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really embarking on an extraordinary journey right into the heart of how we connect with each other. Effective communication. Get ready, because we're going to challenge some common ideas and hopefully expand your toolkit in, well, some surprising ways. We're diving deep into a truly phenomenal resource today. It's a collection of insights from Think Fast, Talk Smart, the podcast, hosted by Matt Abrahams at Stanford Graduate School of Business. Our mission here for this deep dive isn't just to list what makes communication work. We want to illuminate why it's so critical in, well, pretty much every part of your life. Boardroom, living room, everywhere. I'm honestly really excited to dig into the real-world challenges and the expert perspectives this whole compilation brings together.
Yeah, and that's really the beauty of it, isn't it? What's so powerful here is that these sources, they're not just abstract theories. They pull together practical, usable lessons from an incredible range of fields. We're talking leadership, cutting-edge tech, vital personal relationships, navigating your career path. And it all circles back to this absolutely critical skill, communication, which, let's be honest, is often underestimated. Our goal really is for you listening to walk away with insights you can actually use. Actionable stuff, not just concepts. And hopefully you'll gain a deeper appreciation for the intricate art and science of human interaction that these Stanford experts really lay out. It's about the how just as much as the what.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Let's unpack this fundamental question. We all communicate, right? Every single day.
Yeah.
But what really makes communication successful? What gets us beyond just talking? What's the bedrock principle we need to keep coming back to?
Well, Matt Abrahams himself, drawing on insights from, I think, over 75 episodes of his podcast, he kind of distills it down. He talks about 3 guiding principles for successful communication. And these aren't just nice ideas. They're really practical. They consistently boil down to, first, clarity. Your message has to be clear. Second, being audience-centric, which means really truly tailoring what you say to who you're talking to. And third, having a clear purpose. Knowing why you're communicating in the first place. It's about being incredibly intentional, not just, expressing yourself. It means knowing what you want to achieve, who you're talking to, and then crafting that message really carefully to hit both marks. Without those 3, you might just be making noise, frankly.
That third one, purpose. I think that gets overlooked a lot. We talk, but do we always know why? And that audience-centric piece, Charles Duhigg, the Pulitzer winner, he talks about this when he describes a super communicator. This isn't just about being articulate, is it? Or having a huge vocabulary. It sounds like someone who can really bridge gaps, connect deeply, make understanding happen, even when people are far apart, like they have some kind of special awareness.
Exactly. The super communicator, they're not just relaying information, they're creating a sort of shared space. A common ground where understanding can actually grow. And this ties in perfectly with the idea from all effective communication must start with this, and elaborated in Feelings First, How Emotion Shapes Our Communication, Decisions, and Experiences. The core message there is pretty powerful. Before you even figure out your words, you have to tune into your audience's emotional needs.
Emotional needs. Okay, that sounds important. Can you maybe give an example? How would that look in a real situation?
Sure. Imagine you need to deliver some tough news at work, maybe a restructuring. If you just walk in, facts and figures first, you'll likely hit a wall of fear, maybe anxiety, resistance. A super communicator, or someone who gets this feelings first idea, they'd first try to sense that emotional climate. Are people stressed? Worried about the future? Already on edge? So instead of launching into the details, you might start by acknowledging that. Something like, look, I know there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and many of you might be feeling anxious about what's next. I want to address that head on. That tuning in, that emotional acknowledgement before the main message, it makes all the difference in how people receive it. It's about meeting them where they are, emotionally speaking. Then you build from there, because their emotional state, it totally shapes how they hear you. So you have to consider it first.
Okay, so it's not just what we say, or even how we say it stylistically. It's fundamentally about understanding the emotional landscape of the listener, which naturally brings us to listening itself, something we all think we're good at, right? But how often do we truly hear what someone's saying, instead of just, waiting to jump in or planning our brilliant response?
That's a huge question, and it's a common trap, absolutely. Julian Treasure, in Communication Means Paying Attention. The 4 pillars of active listening says it so well. Listening is where human understanding begins. He breaks down active listening into these pillars. Broadly, it involves receiving the message without immediately judging it, then appreciating the speaker's viewpoint, trying to see it from their side, summarizing what you think you heard. So, if I understand correctly, you're saying that checks for accuracy, and crucially, asking clarifying questions, not challenging questions, but questions to deepen understanding. It's a full on conscious engagement, not just letting sound wash over you. If you're not doing those things, you're missing so much.
Wow, yeah, that sounds like way more effort than just hearing sounds. And David Brooks, in Seen and Heard, How to Make Your Audience Feel Understood, he takes it even further. He calls listening deep, creative work, which implies it's not passive at all. It's proactive. It's trying to decipher unspoken things, understand motivations, context, maybe fears, hopes. It's like trying to build a mental model of their world based on what they're giving you.
That takes creativity, right? Filling in the gaps.
Absolutely. And Alison Wood Brooks adds another layer in Listen Up, why it's better to be interested than interesting. This really flips the script. She suggests the secret to truly better conversations is genuine curiosity about the other person. So instead of focusing on how to impress them, how to be the most fascinating person there, you shift. You focus on connecting by making them feel seen, heard, understood, ask open-ended questions, really follow up on what they say, dive into their world. When you do that, you're not just talking, you're building a real connection. And the irony, people often find you more interesting when you show genuine interest in them. So make them the star. And it seems this isn't just for specific high-stakes moments. Rachel Greenwald's advice in Listen, 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 How to Build Deep Connections seems to apply this everywhere. She offers practical tips on being a skilled conversationalist by making a reflex, which takes practice, right? Breaking that habit of just thinking about your next sentence.
It really does. It requires conscious effort to override that default mode.
Okay, this brings up another key thing. Complexity. We often feel we need to sound smart, use jargon, build these intricate arguments. But I have to ask, is simplicity actually the ultimate sophistication when it comes to communication?
It's a great question, and the experts we're looking at, they seem remarkably aligned on this. Francis Frey, in Simplify, How to Communicate Complex Ideas Simply and Effectively, argues that simple communication is the key to moving others to action. And think about why. If you're trying to persuade someone, get buy-in, or just help them understand something complex, a tangled, jargon-heavy explanation, it creates what psychologists call cognitive load.
Cognitive load.
Right.
What does that mean practically for the listener?
Good question. It's basically mental effort or mental clutter. It forces your listener's brain to work overtime just decoding your words, untangling sentences, figuring out the jargon. And when their brain is burning all that energy just on understanding the delivery, there's less capacity left to actually grasp the message, think about it, or decide what to do. So simplifying, it's not dumbing down, not at all. It's respecting your audience's mental energy. It's making it easy for them to get it and act on it. Distilling complex stuff helps comprehension, speeds up decisions, and builds trust because it shows you respect their time and intelligence.
So it's intelligent distillation, not dilution. Yeah, that makes sense. Carmine Gallo's Simple is a Superpower, How to Communicate Any Idea to Any Audience, really hammers this home, doesn't it? He stresses how intentional, straightforward messaging helps you connect with others and get things done. He uses great examples. People who could take super complex topics and break them down into clear, memorable chunks, cutting through the noise, delivering the core message cleanly, whether you're talking to the CEO or the new intern.
And this absolutely extends to writing, which is so critical now, right? In our fast-paced digital world. Todd Rogers' TLDR, Writing, Better to Capture Busy Readers, that title says it all. He stresses getting to the point before their audience checks out. We've all gotten those emails, right? Paragraphs and paragraphs before the actual request. In a world of overflowing inboxes, being concise, putting the main point first, using clear language, it's not just nice, it's essential. It's about respecting that tiny window of attention you actually get. Otherwise, your message just gets lost.
Okay, so wrapping up this first section, it feels like the foundation isn't about flashy words or complicated arguments. It's really about clarity, empathy, focusing on your audience. And it all starts with that deep, active listening, that deep creative work, and then having the skill, the superpower, really, to simplify ideas so they truly land and move people.
Well put. That's the core.
All right, now that we've laid that foundation, the what of effective communication, let's get into the mechanics. The how. And a big one for so many people, myself included sometimes, is communication anxiety, especially public speaking. You know, the butterflies, the racing heart. How can we possibly take those nerves and turn them from a liability into maybe an asset?
It's a fantastic point because, yeah, most people see anxiety as purely bad, something to fight. But Kelly McGonigal, the health psychologist in Feeling Nervous, How anxiety can fuel better communication offers a really different take, a transformative one. She says, stress and anxiety can be used to enhance communication. The trick, she explains, is reframing. Instead of thinking, oh no, my heart's racing, I'm scared, you consciously relabel that feeling. You tell yourself, okay, my body's getting revved up. This is energy. This is excitement. This is readiness to perform. It's about channeling that physical energy, not trying to squash it. You're working with your biology, not against it.
That's a powerful shift in mindset, just relabeling the feeling inside. But what about when that feels impossible, when the anxiety is really intense? The episode, Speaking Up Without Freaking Out, How to Tackle Communication Anxiety, seems to offer more concrete strategies. It looks at the science behind nervousness and gives tips for staying cool in different situations. It's good to know there's actual research behind this, not just take a deep breath.
Absolutely. And building right on that, hacking your speaking anxiety, goes even deeper. It provides actionable lessons from neuroscience. These are concrete steps to reduce speaking anxiety and achieve your communication goals. Things like physiological regulation, practical stuff like specific breathing techniques to calm your nervous system down, or even simple things like adopting power poses before you speak, which can actually signal confidence back to your own brain.
Yeah.
And it includes those mental reframing exercises too, consciously changing how you perceive the situation, like McGonagall suggested. So it's about managing both your body's automatic reactions and your mental story about those reactions, creating a positive feedback loop.
Okay, managing the internal game. Got it. But communication is so much more than words, right? What about all the silent signals? Our posture, gestures, eye contact, even those little ums and likes we sprinkle in. What are those really saying? Maybe even when we don't realize it.
Crucial point. Because often the nonverbal stuff carries more weight, more meaning than the actual words spoken. Dana Carney, in When Words Aren't Enough, How to Excel at Nonverbal Communication, she details these 5 nonverbal rules of power, and they have a huge impact on perception.
Nonverbal rules of power.
Okay, that sounds fascinating. Can you give us an example or two? What are they and how do they work?
Sure. One big one involves expansive posture. Standing tall, shoulders back, maybe arms uncrossed, taking up a bit more space. It doesn't just look confident. It signals openness, assertiveness. Your verbal message just lands with more authority when your body says the same thing. Another key one is appropriate eye contact. Not staring, obviously, that can feel aggressive, but holding someone's gaze long enough to show you're engaged, sincere, direct. It builds that connection, that trust. These cues, posture, gestures, facial expression, even your tone of voice, they massively influence whether you seem confident, trustworthy, approachable, and importantly, if they don't match your words, they can totally undermine everything you're saying. That mismatch is really jarring. And then there are the filler words, the ums and likes. Most of us try so hard to eliminate them because they sound uncertain, right? Unprepared. But Valerie Fridland's work, like so-ho, how filler words can be effective in communication, really pushes back on that. How can these things we think are bad actually be used effectively? Or even good?
Well, what's interesting is the meaning we assign to them isn't fixed. It depends a lot on context and how often you use them. Sure, overuse can definitely be distracting, no question. But in some situations, fillers like, they aren't just signs of fumbling. They can actually signal thoughtfulness, like you're pausing to genuinely consider your next point. Or maybe you're about to say something important and need a beat to phrase it carefully. They can create a little space for the listener to process too, or even make your speech feel more natural, more human, less rehearsed. So it's nuanced. They're not always bad. Sometimes they're just part of how we think and speak naturally.
And it's not just our personal habits either. Culture plays a massive role here. The episode, Showing Your Smile from Behind a Mask, how culture and emotion impact communication, really highlights this. How cultural values play an important role in how you communicate and how you perceive others' communication. A gesture that means confidence in one place could be totally offensive somewhere else. It just shows how complex nonverbals are and how much cultural awareness matters. It's easy to misstep.
Absolutely. You have to be mindful of those cultural lenses.
Okay, shifting slightly, let's talk about authenticity. Showing up as your genuine self. We hear so much advice about crafting an image, managing perception. But how does being authentic or not being authentic really affect our communication, our influence?
Graham Weaver's Speak Your Truth. Why authenticity leads to better communication makes a really strong case here. He argues that being true to yourself enables you to show up better for others. When you're authentic, people tend to trust you more readily. They see you as genuine, not hiding behind a mask. That makes them way more receptive to your message. It fosters a deeper, more real connection, trying to keep up a facade. It's exhausting, for one, and that internal conflict often leaks out non-verbally anyway, creating this subtle barrier. Authenticity just removes that friction.
And that feels deeply connected to personal presence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Muriel Wilkins in Create a Presence, How to Communicate in a Way Others Can Feel, talks about how the best communicators create a strong presence. It's not about being the loudest person. It's about the feeling you leave people with, the impact, that lasting impression, maybe a kind of quiet authority that comes from being fully present and genuine.
Exactly, and this links directly to how we manage your professional identity, especially now. Dory Clark's Maximizing Your Brand, Communicating Who You Are to Help Get What You Want, gives really practical strategies. It's about consciously building the personal brand you want through how you communicate, intentionally conveying your values, your expertise, what makes you unique. And that authenticity we just talked about, it's absolutely foundational to a strong, believable personal brand. You just can't fake it convincingly long term. People see through it.
And it's not always about projecting one single rigid self, is it? We all play different roles. The episode Communicating Our Multiple Selves, How to Manage Your Reputation, touches on this. How our words and actions shape perception, allowing for maybe strategic adjustments in different settings. It's about navigating contexts intelligently while still being rooted in who you genuinely are. Emphasizing different facets of yourself for a board meeting versus a team lunch, perhaps.
Yeah, adapting while staying true. It's a balance.
So it really seems like mastering communication isn't just about the words. It's conquering the inner anxiety, understand the power of your body language, even those filler words, and crucially, embracing authenticity to build trust and project a genuine, impactful presence. It's the whole package.
That sums it up perfectly.
Okay, let's move into an area where communication really gets put to the test. Relationships. Personal, professional, all of them. These could be high stakes. What about the difficulty, but also the benefits of being direct, candid, especially when the conversations are tough?
Yeah, this is a huge challenge area for a lot of people. Susan Rice in Can We Be Candid? How to Communicate Clearly and Directly, she really emphasizes the need for frankness, especially in things like negotiations or when you have to deliver hard truths. Candor, when done well, builds respect. It clarifies things. It stops misunderstandings or resentment from building up silently. But, and this is critical, there's a fine line between candor and just being blunt. Candor is directness aimed at understanding, at progress, usually delivered with respect. Bluntness often lacks that empathy, doesn't consider the other person's feelings, and can do real damage. The intention behind the directness matters enormously.
That distinction is crucial. Candor versus bluntness. It's a tricky balance. And Irv Grausbeck in Conviction and Compassion, How to Have Hard Conversations, tackles this head on. He gives guidance on navigating those tough talks with both conviction and compassion. So being able to stand firm, articulate your view clearly, but also approach the other person with empathy. A genuine desire for a good outcome, not just to win. It's conviction plus care.
And that exact balance is captured so well in Kim Scott's concept of radical candor. It's become really influential. In Radical Candor, the communication shift that can transform your career, she talks about the power of being both caring personally and challenging directly when giving feedback.
Yeah.
It's a framework, really. Caring personally means you genuinely value the other person and their success. Challenging directly means you don't shy away from telling them when they're off track. When that direct challenge comes from a place of genuine care, that's what leads to growth. It builds trust, improves performance. It doesn't feel like an attack. It's feedback that's crystal clear, impossible to misunderstand, but delivered kindly enough that it doesn't trigger defensiveness.
Okay, so whether it's a really hard conversation or just day-to-day stuff, specific actionable feedback is vital. How do we make sure it's genuinely constructive?
David Dotson in Give It To Me Straight. The power of honest, constructive feedback. He calls workplace feedback a company's secret weapon. And I think that's right. Its role in driving improvement, boosting performance is huge. And it's not just about pointing out flaws. Constructive feedback gives specific, observable examples and actionable suggestions for how someone can actually get better. That helps their development, gives them a sense of progress, and yeah, ultimately benefits the whole organization. Without it, people are just guessing how they're doing.
And it feels like feedback is tied really closely to accountability, which sometimes gets a bad name. And embodies no rules, no trust. How accountability shapes communication makes this really interesting point. Why we can't build trust without a solid foundation of rules. which suggests that communicating expectations, boundaries, roles, consequences really clearly isn't just about control. It's fundamental for trust. Without that clarity, trust just breaks down in the ambiguity.
Precisely. Setting up clear communication around rules and accountability. It's not primarily about punishing people, it's about building trust and cutting down on confusion. When everyone knows what's expected, what the guardrails are, what happens if things go wrong, how they'll be held accountable, it creates psychological safety. People feel safer taking calculated risks, asking questions, even admitting mistakes, because the rules of the game are clear, and that directly fuels better teamwork. People know where they stand, they can rely on others behaving predictably, they trust the system, it takes the guesswork and fear out of the equation.
Okay, but even with great communication, clear rules, disagreements happen. We just won't always agree. So how do we take that potential conflict and turn it into something productive, a useful dialogue? Instead of letting it blow up into a fight,
This is such a core challenge for working and living together effectively. Amy Gallo, in Communicating Through Conflict, How to Get Along with Anyone, explores how disagreements, if you reframe them, can actually lead to better outcomes. Instead of seeing disagreement as a threat, something to shut down or win at all costs, you can consciously choose to see it differently. See it as a chance for deeper understanding, or for creative problem solving, or for uncovering issues that were hidden under the surface. It's about shifting from me versus you to us versus the problem.
that's a big mental shift, and Julie Minson builds on that in Navigating the Nuance, The Art of Disagreeing Without Conflict. She says, curiosity is key to healthy discourse, which really emphasizes trying to understand the other person's view rather than just focusing on winning the point. It's not just hearing their position, it's genuinely wanting to know why they believe it, what led them there, what values are involved. That kind of genuine curiosity can really lower the temperature, find common ground, and build respect, even if you still end up disagreeing.
And what's fascinating is even when agreement isn't possible, good communication can still preserve the relationship and allow things to move forward. Michelle Gelfand's Talk It Out: How to Successfully Negotiate and Resolve Conflict offers practical strategies, communication tactics for getting more of what you need while keeping the relationship intact. Things like active listening, acknowledging their points even if you don't agree with them, finding shared goals, separating the person from the issue. It's about looking for creative solutions that respect everyone's core needs, even if the main point of contention remains.
And beyond just handling conflict, communication is fundamentally about building connection, right? Jeffrey Cohen's We Belong Together, How Communication Fuels Connection and Community, is a good reminder of that deep human need. Communication helps us find the connection we crave and need. From a simple hello to a deep conversation, it's how we build belonging. We're wired for it.
Absolutely. And even when differences seem huge, communication can still bridge the gap. The episode Dissolve Disagreements: How Communication Impacts Conflict talks about using psychological distancing. This helps build trust and encourage tolerance, even when viewpoints clash. It might mean consciously taking a step back, trying to see the conflict more objectively, less emotionally, or trying to understand the bigger picture behind the other person's stance instead of getting stuck in the immediate friction. It allows for a calmer, more rational discussion that can build tolerance, maybe even respect, even if agreement isn't reached.
So whether it's giving tough feedback, navigating deep disagreements, or just building everyday rapport, it really boils down to honest, empathetic communication being the bedrock of strong relationships, personal and professional. Leaning into the tough stuff with both conviction and compassion, and committing to understand, not just to be understood.
That's the essence of it, yes.
Yeah. All right, let's scale this up. Let's pivot to the organizational level. Communication's role in overall success, starting with strategy. How do leaders effectively communicate their vision, their game plan, their core values in a way that actually sticks and drives people?
Well, Jesper Sørensen, in Strategic Success, How to Communicate Your Game Plan, points out that strategy in organizations today isn't just top-down anymore. It can be both top-down and bottom-up. And communication is the absolute key to making that work. It ensures everyone's aligned. Leaders need to clearly articulate the big picture vision, that's the top-down part. But just as importantly, they need to be genuinely open to feedback, insights, even pushback from people closer to the ground, the bottom-up part. That two-way flow is essential to refine the strategy, adapt it, and actually execute it well. It has to be a continuous dialogue, not just announcements from the top.
A two-way street, definitely. But beyond the game plan, what about something like ethics? How do leaders use communication to embed ethical values deep within the culture? Leadership and ethics.
How to communicate your core values gets into this. It can't just be a poster on the wall, right?
Good point. No, ethics have to be lived and communicated constantly. That episode explores the keys to making ethical decisions. It emphasizes that transparent, consistent communication of values is how leaders guide behavior and build that crucial internal trust. It means leaders modeling the values themselves, openly talking about ethical gray areas when they come up, and making sure decisions, especially the hard ones, are explained in terms of those core principles. It's about living the values visibly and articulating how they guide choices. That makes them real, not just words.
And speaking of how leaders communicate, John Levin in Directive Speech versus Dialogue, How Leaders Communicate with Clarity Balance, talks about the changing role of communication in business leadership. It's definitely shifted from just giving orders, hasn't it? Now it seems much more about balancing clear direction with real open dialogue.
Exactly, that old command and control model, it's really fading. Yes, clear directives are still needed for efficiency. You need people to know what to do. But modern leadership communication is also about fostering genuine conversation, actively listening to different views, engaging people in the why behind the strategy. Striking that balance between directness and dialogue creates a more resilient, adaptable team. People feel more engaged, more committed, not just compliant. It comes from feeling heard and valued.
Okay, now for the really tough leadership challenges. Communicating through crisis, through deep uncertainty,
Yeah.
and maybe even harder. Learning from mistakes, embracing failure. How do you lead when you genuinely don't know the answers, when things are completely unclear?
What's interesting here is the power of transparency, even when it means admitting uncertainty, communicating uncertainty, how to connect with your audience, even when the answers aren't clear, highlights this. It says being transparent is crucial to earning trust in ambiguous times. Leaders aren't expected to be psychic, especially not in a crisis or a fast-changing market. What builds trust is honesty. Honesty about what is known, what isn't known, and what steps are being taken to figure things out. That vulnerability, perhaps counterintuitively, actually builds stronger connections and credibility than pretending you have all the answers.
That makes a lot of sense, just being human about it. And it seems related to how leaders talk about failure. Amy C. Edmondson's Embracing Failure, How to Make Mistakes That Work, outlines how leaders can create an environment where failure is seen as, well, almost a success, a learning opportunity. How does communication actually create that kind of psychologically safe space where admitting a mistake isn't career suicide?
It's all about how leaders consistently frame it. When leaders repeatedly communicate that mistakes are valuable data points, chances to learn, not reasons for blame, they cultivate psychological safety. They have to model it too, maybe by sharing their own past mistakes. They need to actively encourage people to speak up about errors or potential problems without fear. This kind of communication encourages smart risk-taking, fuels innovation, and ensures problems get surfaced early. It ultimately leads to better decisions across the board. Communicating our mistakes, how to avoid common errors and make better decisions really digs into this too. Open talk about errors stops them from being repeated. It builds a learning culture, removes the stigma.
And then there are those moments of extreme pressure, when the organization, the brand, is under attack. Leading from the hot seat, how to communicate under pressure, and under pressure, how to communicate during a crisis, offer strategies for leaders in those moments. When everything's hitting the fan, it's about staying composed, delivering clear, calm, consistent messages, and owning the narrative. Those are the moments that define leadership communication.
Absolutely critical moments.
So, beyond strategy and crisis, how does communication actively fuel the good stuff? Like creativity, innovation, strong teamwork. How does it make the organization more than just individuals working separately?
Linda Hills, an invitation for innovation. Why creativity is found, not forced, makes a key point. Innovative teams communicate and collaborate their way to breakthrough. Innovation isn't usually a solo light bulb moment. It comes from the dynamic back and forth of ideas, robust discussion, challenging assumptions, solving problems together, all things that need open communication. When ideas can flow freely across teams, up and down the hierarchy, when diverse perspectives are welcomed and combined, that's when creativity really takes off as a team sport. Communication is the lifeblood.
And it's not just about new ideas, but actually getting things done efficiently, avoiding roadblocks, perfecting teamwork. Building high-performing teams by encouraging learning emphasizes breaking down silos and hierarchies through communication, because those silos, where information gets trapped in one department, they kill innovation and slow everything down. Open communication is the only way to bust them.
Exactly. And connecting this maybe to the startup world, Speak Like a Founder, how successful entrepreneurs communicate to their teams offers lessons there. Startups live or die by how quickly they can build and iterate. That requires intense collaboration, constant feedback loops, which means constant, clear, empathetic communication. That relentless focus on fluid, direct communication keeps everyone aligned, knowing their role, pulling in the same direction with shared purpose. Even when things are chaotic and uncertain, it's essential for agility.
So it's really clear. Leadership communication isn't just about announcements or managing PR. It's about actively building a culture of transparency, inspiring innovation, navigating the tough times with honesty, and creating an environment where everyone feels they can contribute. It's a massive force multiplier.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, let's bring all this great insight into our current world. The communication landscape is changing so fast. Technology, remote work, AI. How has all this changed the game? What are the new challenges and maybe the new opportunities for us?
Yeah, the shift has been huge, hasn't it? It affects almost everything about how we interact, especially at work. Episodes like The New Normal, how hybrid work actually works and ties that bind, why remote teams need the right connection, they really explore the unique communication needs of hybrid setups. Communicating effectively here isn't just about sending information, it's about finding ways to keep that genuine connection going. How do you foster spontaneous collaboration when people aren't physically together? How do you make sure everyone feels included, seen, heard, regardless of where they are? It requires real intention, often using technology thoughtfully to maintain the human element.
And it's not just the hybrid model, but the tools themselves. Video calls, chat platforms, quick thinks, tips for speaking up in virtual meetings, and quick thinks, communicating and leading virtually, offer practical tips for communicating well on screen. Things like looking at the camera, using chat strategically, knowing when to mute or unmute. But the old rules don't always apply. A lot of those nonverbal cues we talked about need conscious adaptation for virtual.
And then there's the huge topic of artificial intelligence. This is really fascinating. Russ Altman's Communicating the Future, Defining Where We Want AI to Take Us, shares his actually quite optimistic view. He sees AI potentially augmenting human connection, not replacing it. By handling routine tasks or helping us sift through information, AI could free us up to focus more on the complex, empathetic, creative parts of communicating with each other, leveraging tech to enhance our human skills.
And we're already seeing practical applications changing how we work. Jeremy Utley and Gyan Gohar's How to Chat with Bots, The Secrets to Getting the Information You Need from AI, talks about how large language models, LLMs, can boost team problem solving. Learning how to prompt AI effectively, how to interact with these tools to get useful results. That's becoming a core communication skill itself.
Fast. Right, it helps us generate ideas, draft things, summarize complex stuff much faster. It's a whole new way of working. We're all learning this new language. And the act of talking to these bots, it raises really interesting questions. Quick things. AI has entered the chat conversation with ChatGPT, makes us think about what communication even is when one side is an algorithm. It forces us to pinpoint what makes human connections special, the emotion, the nuance, shared experience, even as we use AI for efficiency. It highlights that difference between just transmitting data and truly connecting.
But what seems crystal clear through all this tech talk is that the human element, the psychology, remains central. Psychology trumps technology. How to express yourself and truly connect with others online really drives this home. Whatever the platform, email, video, even AI interaction, those core principles still apply. Empathy, clarity, authenticity, focusing on the other person. That's what builds connection. Tech is just the tool.
Exactly. The fundamentals don't change.
Okay, let's bring it back to the individual's journey. Building on these modern challenges, how can communication directly boost our careers? From landing the job to getting ahead.
Well, it's foundational to almost everything, isn't it? Andrew Siemens' Get Hired, How the Right Communication Can Advance Your Career, gives such practical advice. How to communicate who you are effectively in your resume, your online profile, and especially in interviews. It's not just listing skills, it's about crafting a compelling story about your value, clearly showing your strengths, connecting what you've done to what they need. Your resume is a sales pitch, really.
And it's not just the big formal stuff like interviews. What about everyday interactions? Matt Abraham's own episode, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, How to Excel at Small Talk and Even Enjoy It, highlights something often dismissed: small talk. It sounds trivial, but he argues it's crucial for networking, building relationships.
Absolutely crucial. He talks about how to master the art of chit-chat, and yeah, its role in building rapport and opening doors is huge, even if we underestimate it. Good small talk. It's a tool. It establishes that initial connection, finds common ground, smooths the way for deeper professional relationships later. It's like the social lubricant, making interactions easier and creating positive first impressions that can lead to real opportunities.
And sometimes moving forward means knowing how to say no effectively, protecting your time and energy. Ilya Strebulayev's The Art of Saying No. How closing the wrong doors helps you open the right ones applies a venture capitalist's mindset. It's about making better choices by clearly communicating your boundaries and priorities, saying no strategically with confidence but without damaging relationships. That's a skill in itself.
A very important skill for avoiding burnout and staying focused.
Finally, let's touch on what's often the ultimate goal: persuasion, influence. How do we move beyond just informing people to actually persuading them, inspiring them to act?
Jonah Berger's magic words, change what you say to inspire and influence others, digs into this. He reveals specific language choices, magic words, that make messages stickier, more shareable, more persuasive. It's about understanding the psychology behind why certain phrasing resonates more, tapping into shared identity maybe, or highlighting novelty. It's subtle but powerful.
And Bob Cialdini takes it even further with change my mind, using persuasion to influence others.
Oh,
He looks at influencing people before you even deliver your main message, setting the stage, priming them, creating the right mindset so they're already receptive when your idea finally arrives. It's like preparing the soil before planting the seed.
exactly. And again, the point isn't manipulation. It's ethically understanding psychological triggers to make people more open to considering your idea, creating the best possible conditions for your message to land. Maybe by making it relatable, framing it correctly, linking it to their values, using social proof. It's about maximizing the chances of being truly heard and considered.
So from navigating this complex digital world to building our personal brand, to understanding the art of persuasion, it's clear that grasping these modern communication dynamics alongside those timeless psychological principles really empowers us, helps us thrive, not just survive, in this fast-changing world. Be effective, impactful, and truly connected.
Well said, it's an ongoing learning process for all of us.
Wow. What an incredible journey through effective communication we've taken today. This deep dive has covered so much ground. We started with those core ideas, deep listening, the power of simplicity. Then we tackled the mechanics, managing anxiety, decoding nonverbals. We looked at relationships, candor, feedback, conflict, then leadership, strategy, uncertainty, innovation, and finally we dove into today's world. Digital challenges, personal branding, persuasion. It's been really comprehensive.
It really has. And I think if there's one core message tying it all together, it's that communication isn't just one skill you learn. It's this multifaceted blend of art and science. It's constantly evolving, especially with technology. But at its heart, it always comes back to fundamental human connection, empathy, understanding, and the wisdom from these Stanford GSB experts. It offers really practical, actionable insights for anyone looking to improve. It reminds us there's always room to grow.
Absolutely. And as we finish up, here's maybe one last thought for you, our listener, to chew on, building on all this. If effective communication truly hinges on understanding and connecting with others, what hidden biases or assumptions might we carry about what effective even means, especially when we talk to people who are really different from us, different backgrounds, views, communication styles? How can we challenge those assumptions in ourselves to become even better, more inclusive, more impactful communicators in all our interactions, especially across those differences?
That's a powerful question to end on. It really highlights that becoming a great communicator isn't just about techniques. It's a continuous journey of learning, of reflecting on ourselves and practicing constantly. So we really encourage you to keep exploring. Dive deeper into the areas from today that sparked your interest. The learning never really stops.